It began with the sound of boots, polished, synchronized, echoing down a corridor that smelled of disinfectant and smoke. The door opened, and a harsh light spilled into the ward. A man in a pristine white coat stepped through. His name would one day be scrubbed from every record that mattered, but on this morning, in 1943, he was simply called Doctor. He paused beside a bed where a man lay awake, his wrists trembling against worn leather restraints. Outside, the world was on fire. Armies clashed, nations burned, and empires crumbled. But inside this room, a different kind of war was raging, a battle between medicine and morality, science and humanity. The doctor glanced at his clipboard, then at the subject's wide, terrified eyes. "He's ready," he said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. Two assistants immediately wheeled the bed towards the cold room, a chamber lined with thick frost, its thermometer already sinking well below freezing. Cameras clicked, their flashes illuminating the sterile tiles. A stopwatch started. The man's breath began to fog the air as the temperature plummeted. His pulse, monitored by wires taped to his chest, quickened. Then it slowed. Then it quickened again in a frantic, desperate rhythm. The doctor took meticulous notes, his expression detached, clinical. This was not about healing, this was about discovery through destruction. By noon, the first subject was gone, and another test had begun. This time, it was a pilot's entrance study. Another man, this one a captured aviator, was sealed inside a high-altitude pressure chamber. The hiss of pressure valves filled the tense silence as oxygen was slowly, methodically stripped from the air. The man gasped, clawing at his chest, the veins in his neck standing out like thick wires beneath his skin. A monitor traced the frantic peaks and valleys of his heartbeat until, finally, it didn't. The line went flat. The doctor leaned close, his face almost touching the thick glass of the chamber, watching intently. "No time of cardiac arrest," he whispered to his assistant. Another entry in the logbook, another result. Night fell. The halls of the institute went quiet, the earlier screams and struggles replaced by the low hum of generators and the faint, metallic clatter of surgical instruments being sterilized for the next day's work. In a small, brightly lit office at the end of the corridor, the doctor sat writing his report under the grand banner of medical progress. His pen did not tremble. His hand was steady. To him, this was duty. It was science in the service, the twisted ideal of purity. It was healing, inverted into a grotesque form of obedience. The days blurred together, one horrific experiment bleeding into the next. Hypothermia, hypoxia, poison, infection, twins, held side by side, were dissected for comparison. Prisoners were injected with bacteria and debris to simulate the gangrene of battlefield wounds. Each procedure, each death, was cloaked in cold, clinical language. Subject did not respond. Termination deemed necessary. The words were precise, scientific. But behind them lay a chorus of screams that no official report could ever sanitize, and yet, the doctors smiled. They held meetings, they discussed methodology, they debated results with the academic fervor of scholars at a university, not executioners in a death factory. The very same hands that had once delivered babies and set broken bones now charted the absolute limits of human agony. They told themselves it was for knowledge, they told themselves it was for the future, for the glory of the right. But even monsters can grow tired of the silence they create. Late one night, a young nurse, her face pale and her hands shaking, approached the doctor as he was leaving his office. Her voice was barely a whisper. "What happens to them?" she asked. "When it's over." The doctor stopped and looked up from his papers, his eyes hollow, reflecting the stark overhead lights. "Over," he repeated, a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. "It's never over." When the war finally ended and the Allied tanks rolled in, the walls of that hospital stood silent and empty. The rooms reeked of antiseptic and something heavier, something that would never wash away. Files were burned, names were erased, but the truth could not be incinerated. In 1946, in a Nuremberg courtroom filled with the stench of guilt and unspoken fear, the doctors faced judgment. The evidence was presented, the photographs were shown, bodies frozen mid-screen, children marked with ink and numbers, like livestock. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. The world stared in disbelief. The healers, the men who had taken an oath to do no harm, had become the most proficient killers of all. The verdicts fell, heavy and cold. Some hanged. Some escaped, vanishing into new lives under new names. But the legacy remained, a chilling whisper that medicine, in the wrong hands, can become a weapon far sharper and crueler than any blade. So if you ever find yourself walking through the long, quiet corridors of an old hospital late at night, listen closely. Past the hum of the fluorescent lights and the beeping of modern machines, you might just hear it. The faint, rhythmic echo of polished boots on a linoleum floor. and the soft rustle of a clipboard turning to its final, damning page, because once, not so very long ago, the people sworn to save life made a conscious decision to study death instead. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into the shadows of history.